Hello, wrestling fans. It's nice to be back. Another great week in AEW land, and we're also still on the Canadian tour, which has been, I think, very entertaining and great support so far. And it's great to have our regulars. Siren, nice to see you again. Hope you
Hi.
had a good week.
Oh, it has been
And
absolute chaos, but when is it not in Thailand?
there we go. Adam, how's your week been, sir? All
It's
good?
been all right. Yeah, no, back to work, doing all the work stuff, making food, giving out food. It's always good times.
Nice, nice, awesome. Well, yeah, no, I think we're back for another week. We're episode 33. All right, I got that right last time. Last week I messed that up, so I wanted to make sure and didn't mess that up. But anyways, we're going to back. We're going to be talking about some of the things, the events that happened this past week in the world of AEW, and of course, if there's anything prevalent that happens in the whole wrestling world. I know we're approaching WrestleMania, so there's a lot of stuff happening in the WWE world, but we'll focus. And we had AEW in Toronto, my hometown, last week. Which I actually thought it was a great show. I was pretty bummed I didn't actually get to see it in person live, like I have with other AEW shows when they've been in Toronto. But it was well represented, and they made sure to show the crowd, which I love. AEW is great at that. When they get a full arena, they really use the camera angles, which is great, and they should. And Toronto is such a great crowd, very vocal, which is great. And I really liked this year, like last week, that they actually had the Rampage live, I think on TNT. It was right after, so they had the full show, and I thought they did a good job on Rampage. And Rampage is kind of like the lost, ugly stepchild. Doesn't get a lot of love, but I
I
thought
still
they did
love you, Rampage.
exactly. So I guess we can jump right into it, guys. And the match that's obviously top of mind for myself and for a lot of people, which I thought was a phenomenal match and very entertaining, was the I Quit match between the Rated R superstar Adam Copeland and Christian Cage, former best friends, and I'm sure still best friends backstage. But we had a title change, and this match had it all. You could feel from the get-go that these guys had been talking about wanting to do this type of match probably their entire lives, and they're able to do it in their hometown. Awesome. You know what, Siren, I'll pass it over to you for your thoughts and whether if this was a thumbs up or thumbs down match for you.
Why would you put the ladder upside down like that? Why? I have nightmares about that. I wake up with cramps in my abdomen because I'm like, ah! No, like seriously though, there's some really interesting spots in there and things that I was like, what are you doing? Oh, but yeah, it was pretty brutal. It was good. I'm glad that it turned out the way that it did. And yeah, I like the use of handcuffs. I mean, they were always down. I'm a little bummed out about the whole no Beth, but I mean, what are you gonna do,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like, they're just gonna keep me on the edge of my seat every time that like Mother Wayne comes out. I'm gonna be like, is it now? And I mean, I'm hoping in like I remember back in my early time with AEW, it just like seemed like every week was a pay-per-view and there's always something crazy happening that you're like, so like maybe it'll just happen on a random Rampage or Dynamite sometime. That'd be really dope. But yeah, all in all, I thought it was a kick butt match, minus the upside down ladder thing. I mean, that was cool because I've never seen it before, but there's probably a reason I never saw it before.
Yeah, that was nuts. To your point, I thought this totally had a pay-per-view feel similar to the early days. I 100% agree with you. The crowd was like a pay-per-view crowd. They were so into it, loved it. Adam, what did you think of this one?
Loved it. This was classic Edge and Christian one-on-one. This brought me back to their Attitude Era days of WWF. There was a few spots that I just ate up and I marked out in the penalty box with the Boston jersey and the Toronto jersey. Definitely clean fun right there. But the beginning of the match, Edge's song cuts out, and actually Jason mentions in here the whole crowd just continuing to sing the song. Very reminiscent of what they did with Chris Jericho's Judas. So I thought that was really cool. A lot of the backstage stuff, obviously, both men showed a lot of good, spots in the match. the spot on the stage where he did kind of like the flip and threw Edge or Christian off the stage, and he kind of tumbled, and then he brought the hockey goal out and all that. That was pretty cool. And then obviously, yeah, the ending where Edge kind of evened the score between Christian and his family, and so kind of brought out Daniel Garcia and Daddy Magic and all that stuff. So it was really cool to see like him kind of even the odds against that. And also shout out to Jason. Thank you. I love my Danhausen shirt too. But yeah, overall, I thought it was a great match. I'm glad Copeland won. I'm glad he gets to have a little bit of a run with that title. And kind of excited to see where he goes with it.
I 100% agree. I don't know if you guys caught Taz saying Edge, and he's like, oh. That was so. I loved it. That was awesome because just like everyone's so into it. The penalty box, the jerseys, loved it. That is so Canadian. That's such a Toronto thing. I love how Adam came out fully decked out and the blue and white for the Leafs. Obviously, it's his team and the crowd eats that up. Loved it. I was. Yes, I was really hoping. I kept on watching to see a Beth because if it would have been a perfect time to bring her out. There was probably some legalities around it, or maybe contractuals, or whatever happens. Maybe they just couldn't have it cleared or whatever. But I thought that would have been an amazing time to bring her in. And I was actually very surprised. I was wondering how Adam was going to use his spike bat, or the stick that he created. And I was actually very impressed with the crotch shot with the stick and the spikes. That was pretty awesome. Great finish. The handcuffs, the whole handcuff scene. I thought that was really cool, really well done. I don't know if you could really have asked for much more from this in terms of the finale of the story. You had tables, ladders, chairs. Siren, like you brought up, the upside down ladder, and he dropped it like right on the hinges. And my God, obviously the crowd loved it, and the crowd responded with that as well. But this is one of those classic matches that AEW did not miss on. I don't know if you guys in the comments there, if you would agree with that this was spot on. Having it the way it is. This is like that fairy tale kind of ending for Edge. He got to do his last match in Toronto against Sheamus when he was finishing up in WWE, and he gets to win the TNT title with AEW in Toronto, and probably will be his last run. So, which I thought was amazing. But I was really excited. Wanted to make sure and bring that up. That was top of mind for me. But Siren, is there another bright spot from that Dynamite that you want to mention?
So, both the ones I have to mention next are kind of both like good and bad. But I'm going to start with the one that's more positive. So the Eddie versus Kazuchika Okada match was awesome because, like, as I've mentioned before on the podcast, that he's slowly, or I guess not so slowly, becoming one of my all-time favorite heels in AEW. He's just so funny and subtle, and his humor's great, and he's talented in the ring. So it was really awesome. And they're like a little bit of a different wrestling style against each other, and it was really cool. I didn't know who was gonna win, and at the end of the day, I hate to see Eddie lose, but I feel like it's gonna be good for his story, like Okada's story going forward, and that's really interesting me right now. So it's a good and bad.
Yes. So did you find it was fitting, the title change and who it went to?
Yes. Yeah, definitely. There's really no other at this time anyway. There's really no other person I see you could put it on and have it make sense. And then not only that, but with the whole Bucks doing like their power thing right now, it just makes so much sense. And like the story that should come out of it should be phenomenal. And I'm really hoping that there's some really solid matches to come out of it as well.
Yeah, and at your point though, now with the Elite, I kind of find like this is setting it up. So I wouldn't be surprised if the Bucks are going to end up winning the tag team tournament that they're going to be, that they've already started. I don't. Yeah. And it would actually make sense now, especially Okada has that championship. These guys will be the tag championships. which is actually kind of mirrors a little bit because that'd be kind of interesting because you've got the Undisputed Kingdom, but they've got Roderick with one of the belts. They got the ROH tag titles there. So like you'd have two factions potentially having three belts or
Yeah.
have like three of them have belts would actually be pretty cool. So that'd be neat to see what happened. But no, I thought it was a good match. Putting the belt on Okada this early really just shows the level of respect that they have and how they are really pushing this guy to be how important it is and how special it is for him to be over right now in AEW with this talent. Um, so you know what? It was fitting. I had a feeling that that's what was going to happen. And Okada's since he's been over his first real match was is it Koran? Lemon.
Lemon.
Hey, thanks for tuning in. I'm gonna say so. I kind of lost my train. So I think this is a fitting. I think it's great to establish his character and his storyline and his importance. And I love that he's aligned with the Bucks to be the elite. I love the suits. I love the corporate image. I think it's perfect timing for him to come in, and I think he is going to be. I think once all the fans really, really understand what he can do and what he like, how big of a star he really is, he's going to catch on even more. So I thought definitely that was a good match. And oh yeah, Same Okada, his first two matches, he gets he wrestles in front of a sold out crowd in Boston. Then he comes to Toronto, sold out crowd in Toronto. So he's already right off the bat,
Oh yeah.
coming in strong with the good turnouts. Speaking of turnouts and having the energy, even I'll take a Will Ospreay promo any day over half the matches. I could just listen to this guy. I love his energy. He comes across as genuine, just whatever he comes out of his mouth. People are just like sitting there waiting to like write his things down because he had that crazy that little thing. What did he say? But basically why he's motivated? Like he said, like I've got like 2 dogs, 3 cats, 2 kids, a missus and a mortgage. Like obviously, he's obviously a lot better than that, but people love that because he's like, this is why I'm motivated. That's why it's different. I'm like, awesome. And this friggin' saying of bruv has taken off is this new chant. I mean, it's so I love him. I think it's great. I'm really excited about this chapter, what's happening right now in AEW. And if anyone complains about the lack of talent or boring matches, then I don't know what you're watching because there's a lot of good stuff going on and it's very entertaining. And I still think that AEW promos overall I think are still ahead of WWE in terms of promo. Even though I will say promos have gotten better in WWE and Punk and Rollins and with the right over there doing with you've got Cody. Cody's doing a great job with The Rock and with over there. So there's some good promos going on, but I still think the talent that comes over to AEW, like who don't you want to listen to, or who in your mind is like, oh my god, he's terrible right now? I mean, there's not a lot of terrible guys in promos right now.
Not right now, no. I was gonna say Adam Page, but his last Collision promo, I was like, damn, that was fire. So like I can't even say Adam Page because normally he's my guy who I'd go to for that.
So you might I'll get your feedback on this one. We'll keep on with promos. We were talking the last couple of weeks. I don't know if you were on with us, Siren. We were talking about the Acclaimed, and we were kind of like, "What's happening?" And kind of we were like, "Meh." They came out and dropped a killer promo. There was energy, there was the fierceness, there was emotion, there's that kind of like the anger, there was an edge to it, which is great because I love when guys take advantage of a hype crowd and they use that energy. Right. So I think I think it really does mean more than we think it does. Again, there's TV tapings and the way they set up normally, and the guys are, the hard camera angle, we get it. But when it's a full crowd, you can see it just translates to the performances in the ring and on promo. So love to get your feedback on that.
I'm a huge fan of the Acclaimed, as you know, and I'm not a fan of the I wasn't a fan of the whole whatever. But yeah, no, I'm super glad that they're finally getting a little bit more of their fire back. Because yeah, for a bit there, I mean, they kept cutting him off, like which we call it, Max Caster off whenever he'd go out and like try to do his, and then he started to like, it wouldn't even need to be cut off. He would just fumble himself, and it was like, huh, you know. And so it's really good to see him get like a little bit of that piss and vinegar back. You know, like, come on. So yeah, no, I really enjoyed it. I'm excited to see what they're going to do with that storyline.
Yeah, me too. Adam, your thoughts on the Acclaimed promo?
Yeah, I thought it was probably one of their better ones. Just the passion they had behind it, and you really didn't need Billy Gunn there. You literally just needed those two guys there, and literally just let Max Caster and oh my God, names are flipping my mind here. Anthony Bowen to just go, you know, just give them the mic, let them flow. And they're probably one of those underrated, forget their underrated tag team, even though they're trio champions. They're one of those underrated tag teams that are very good on the mic, that can actually speak. They just don't have to do the entrance rap and do all that stuff, but they can talk. Their promos are up to par. And I want to go back, because I was still listening when I was out of the room, about, you know, the promo from Will Ospreay that you were talking about, Maddie. And I got to tell you, I love Will Ospreay. If anybody watching the show sees that, I am a huge Ospreay Mark bruv. I don't know what it is about the guy, but he's just so passionate, and he's so good in the ring. If you go back and watch a lot of his Rev Pro matches, they are really, really good. And so when he gets on the mic and he speaks from the heart. That's what I love about that promo from any promo from Will Ospreay, because he speaks from the heart, where he mentions, yeah, I got a family to feed, you know, I've got a mortgage, I've got kids, I've got animals, I gotta make money, bruv. And like, he speaks from it. And so I think between that and the promo of the Acclaimed, I think that Wednesday had some really good promo moments.
Yeah, absolutely. Even actually, just thinking back, when Swerve was with Renee doing that interview, of course they had to have her, and they had to bring her up that Toronto is her hometown as well. Why not? I think everyone stepped up their game. And even when Samoa Joe came out, you know, again, so like Adam, you know, we were talking, maybe you can even speak to this. It's, you know, when they're in front of a hype crowd that's into it, it really translates. And I think think you really notice it with that kind of crowd. Everyone kind of felt it was a big night. It was everyone was like, everyone knew it was a special night for the Edge and Christian. So there was just something about it, right? And I don't know if you kind of sense, I mean, you kind of said it right there. The promos were awesome, but do you feel that they were at the intensity that they were and as entertaining as they were because of being in a crowd like that?
Yeah, I think, and here's the thing, and it's nothing against my friends here in the States that go to these shows, but international crowds have a different energy to them when they go to a pro wrestling show. I mentioned the promotion just now, Rev Pro. If you watch the crowd to a Rev Pro show that's in the UK, they are out of their minds and they're into it. No matter what, they feed into it, whether it's a match or a promo. They feed into it. Same with the Canadians crowd, the Canadian crowds. They are so into it. It doesn't matter what it is. It could be WWE, it could be AEW, it could be TNA. They get into it because they understand what these people are doing. These wrestlers are putting on a show for entertainment, but they understand that there's story to all of it. And I think what we forget here in the States is we like a little story with a little bit of action. You know, that's what we forget. We're international crowds. They understand that. They get a mix of both, and they love it, and they eat it up. And I think those promos worked in Canada because the Canadian audience just, they got so much energy, and I freaking love it. There's a dream of mine to actually go to Canada and go to a show in Canada for AEW, just because I want to experience that. So I do think the crowd does play into what energy both the matches and the promos give off at a show.
I mean, to
Yeah,
be fair, it's like everybody loves chocolate pudding, but if you get chocolate pudding every day for a month, you're not going to like it as much. Well, we here in Canada only get chocolate pudding once a month, you know? Like, I mean, I don't know about you guys, but I don't live in a massive city in Canada, so like wrestling doesn't come to my city very often. I have to drive at least 2 to 5 hours to get to wrestling when it comes here. So like, hell yeah, I'm going to be really into it. Like, I haven't seen you guys in forever. Like, and my last time I went to AEW was technically my first time. So like, I think that plays a little bit into it as well. I mean, I want to think that we enjoy the subtle nuances and that we're just really awesome crowds. But I am also sure we just don't get it as much. We really don't. Like we have our local promotions for sure, but AEW just started coming up here. WWE, when they come through my area, at least 9 times out of 10, it's a house show. Like, So, I mean, but that's just my view on it.
Yeah, no, it totally makes sense. And Adam, love to have you up here. And if you were going to make the trip up to Southern Ontario, yeah, you'd be you'd be in good company here. I think to your points, I still would love to see an event in the UK. I love it. And it translates. If you watch darts, they treat darts the same way as they treat wrestling. Like they're just into it. And the Canadians too are about like, we're not here just to be entertained. We're here to entertain ourselves, and we are part of the show. And almost like they feel like the crowds, especially the Canadians and in the UK, they want to entertain the wrestlers. They want because they want the reaction. They either the chants, the things they say. It's awesome, and that's enjoying, and that is being part of something. That's the part of the whole show. You could just be in the crowd and have a great time because everyone's just in a great mood and wants to be there, and is part of it, excited. So I always find that's exciting, and this past week definitely had that feel, which is nice. Which is because it feels like AEW is alive and well. What do you guys think it was going to do with the Joe and Swerve? And it's so does Hangman get involved? Because it would make no sense for him to call Swerve. And good points.
We've debated this.
Yeah. So I think Hangman's going to be out for a bit. I think when they actually have a match, when it comes to Joe and Swerve, it'll be Joe and Swerve, because that'll be a deserved match, right? And not have to be like a screw job. And I think it'll be a clean finish. That's my take. Yeah.
I honestly think tomorrow, I do think Swerve gets the win over Takesha. I think it'll be a really solid match based on what we saw from Takesha against Rocky Romero on Rampage, because that match for me was underrated. I honestly thought it was a really good match. It was probably one of the better Rocky Romero matches as a singles wrestler. And so I do see Swerve winning and getting his focus back on Samoa Joe in the AEW title. So
yeah, to your point, yeah, that's going to be a good match. I think on a different storyline, Takesha would win this one. But because the way they're building up Swerve, I agree with you. It has to be Swerve, because this will be a big win. And this will be one of those wins that you're like, ooh, maybe, I don't know, he could win the championship. So it's needed, but I think, again, in a different storyline, definitely the trade would be there, and Takesha would be expected to win as well. So, sorry.
And that's the thing, like, even without anything like on the line, I put both of those guys in the ring, and I have a hard time picking who would win, because Takesha's super, super talented. He's so talented, but Swerve's crazy, so I mean, I don't know. I like both of them, but yeah, I think Swerve will take it away, obviously this time, just for storyline reasons. But if I really thinking about it, just putting them for like fighting purposes in a ring, I'm not sure who I would pick.
Yeah, you could pick either one. Again, I think it's a storyline. This is the storyline, and this is the way we're going with it. Yeah.
I think so.
Yeah, I wanted to show this to go back on our point about the crowds and everything like that, and Jason does bring up a good point about hopefully moving All In to different places. I would like to see that. Obviously, you see the same shows, pay-per-views, most of them almost at the same places. All Out, you always see in Chicago. And then All In 2 years in a row now is going to be the UK. Double or Nothing's always in Vegas, but again, you can always do that in Kansas City because Kansas City is known for its casinos as well. So
Yeah.
I do kind of agree
Think
with
of
Jason that an Atlantic City would be a really cool one too to host Double or Nothing if you can find a big enough arena for it. But I think it would be really cool to kind of move some of these pay-per-views around to different, venues. And I think we'll see that with this new pay-per-view Dynasty. I think they'll move that around as well as maybe World's End. I think those two, since they're brand new, they may be able to work with moving those around more than those other pay-per-views.
Yeah. Do you think they're going to have, like, say, a Dynasty? Could this move around and be that international pay-per-view that's even from Japan one time? Because again, I feel like they're getting enough Japan stars that if it does go over there, have a huge impact now because some of these stars will have been away for a period of time and they're coming back home, so to speak, right? Which I think you could totally do. And maybe that's something they're leading up to. Are they going to lead up to doing a pay-per-view in Mexico, right? There's a huge tie-in right now with Mexico. There's a huge tie-in with Japan. So I think those would be two good spots that you could move and actually have a pay-per-view from. I don't know. But do you guys think that, are we going to see a Japanese or a Mexican pay-per-view?
I mean, I think that I want to say Japanese probably first. And the only reason is because you see, like, from the very beginning of AEW, you've seen competitors go back and forth for like the G1 and stuff. So they've had, like, the relationship has been there for since the beginning. I mean, a lot of their people started over. I mean, I don't know. I feel like that would probably be the first place to do it, but I could be wrong.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. Go ahead, Adam.
No, I was just gonna agree with Siren. Is that mostly if you're gonna see AEW do a pay-per-view anywhere, it will be in Japan first because of that close connection that Tony Khan has with the president over there. And the only issue I have with that is because you already do Forbidden Door. So I mean, you could keep Forbidden Door here a couple of years and then do one Forbidden Door in Japan, kind of like
sense.
that. The only difference is, and this goes back to our conversation about crowds, is that both Japanese crowds and Mexico crowds are different breeds of energy. So for the Japanese crowds, and if you guys remember this back in the day, back in a couple of the one episode of Dark Side of the Ring, when they talk about the collision in Korea, when they go to like those countries, they're very strict on what you can do and very strict on crowds at events. But, for example, in Japan, most of the time they stay seated for everything until the match is over. Then they stand up and applaud, But with Mexico, they'll cheer, but they're still trying to understand, especially when you get that culture breakthrough. You know what I mean? Like that line right there where you're trying to break in Western culture pro wrestling into Mexican style wrestling. Because they're so used to the lucha libre and all down there and the flying and the flipping. But you get two people in there like a Wardlow and a Samoa Joe just beating each other up. They got to adapt to it because it's something they might not have seen before, So but they do enjoy it. So, but I do see that it would be really cool to see both those countries get an AEW show.
Agreed.
Yeah, I mean, if you can see, like when WWE did a recent pay-per-view in Puerto Rico, and that went over massive. Just because it's like they haven't had chocolate pudding, they've had tapioca for 6 years,
like,
and they get
chocolate,
right? So you get it, and then when you, excuse me, when you get that flair, you add some of that Cuban or whatever. If you're really put those pieces in for the local. Whether it's the Canadian side, and you see if they go over there and they kind of really kind of push the Japanese stars, because then now they have interviews with guys who can speak the language, right? So that's even better, because now you've got a communication to get AEW across, right? Because now you've got people who actually can speak Japanese to the Japanese people because they are Japanese. And then I don't know, like someone like Will Ospreay seems to know quite a bit. Again, so he's another guy who he would go back and people would lose their mind to see again. So I guess we'll have to see. Tony Khan's always got some big plans. He doesn't think small. We know that. And these kind of connections to me, kind of lead in those directions. But I guess we'll find out and see if it's going to be this year or next year, possibly. But get your guys' opinion on this match. I felt it was a bit of a rite of passage match. Hook versus Chris Jericho. Siren, what did you think of this one?
I was just hoping somebody would bring it up so I didn't have to. I liked it. Although there was a couple of spots in it. Like, I love watching Hook wrestle because he's been trained, well, probably since he was able to lift stuff, like how to lift stuff and throw stuff properly. And so, like, there was a couple of spots where I was watching, I was like, what are you doing? But other than that, it's just because you've, like, watched him wrestle so often, you're like, gosh, he is so technically talented. And then he drops Jericho on his head like 3 times. And you're like, like, to be fair, though, it did not look like Jericho even attempted to tuck at all. Like, it was like, okay, man, pull your chin in a little bit. Like, next thing you know, he's going to have his mouth open. He's going to bite the end of his tongue off. I don't know. It's craziness. Either way, it was a good match, though. It was a really good match. He definitely got some solid receipts. He got dropped on his face. Hook got dropped on his face. That was definitely a receipt. It was good, though. It was good. And rite of passage for sure. It was like, it looked like he was getting his butt worked in. Like, for sure.
Yeah, no, Jericho's been good like that. You got to say, action Andretti, he put him over. So you got to give it to Jericho. He will put over talent. He sees the bigger picture. I thought there was a bit of an oversell on those suplexes with the headshot, but I'll pass it over to Adam for some feedback on this one.
Yeah, so this kind of came full circle because Chris Jericho wrestles Taz in ECW, and now he wrestles Taz's son. So it kind of shows you the longevity that Chris Jericho has had in the pro wrestling world, going from one generation to another, wrestling the two in the same family. But I thought it was a really decent match. I really think Chris Jericho helped Hook a little bit in that match. I do think Hook kind of there was a couple of suplexes I was like, but I think it did. Yeah, but I think the match did just tell what it had to tell, and you kind of left wondering at the end there about Chris Jericho saying that he's proud of Hook and he's got something special planned for him. Blah blah blah. I'm like, is Chris Jericho? Then this is where my crazy wrestling mind goes. I go, is Chris Jericho going to take over Taz's spot as his new father figure? Is Chris Jericho going to take a book out of Christian and be like, I'll be your new father figure in this business. Your dad's got a broken neck. I will take care of you. But no, I thought it was really cool to see Chris Jericho again. And it was so surreal. Just remember, like, that's Taz's kid. And I remember the days of watching Chris Jericho and Taz in ECW at the same time, and now seeing Taz on commentary and Chris Jericho wrestling his kid. So for me, it was still surreal, but it was a really cool moment. And like you said, it's definitely the cool moment for when Chris Jericho puts over newer talent, and people forget that that's part of his job as a veteran.
Oh, heck yeah.
Do you think it's a do you think it's a way to remind the fans of who they think the future is? And obviously it feels like they're really pushing Hook, and they keep on, with a lot of the wordings that they say, they're really almost trying to convince the fans, like, he's the future. Here's the future. This is the future, right? Almost like he's good. I can see it. I know they're really pushing him. I guess a question to you guys. We've seen Chris Jericho on his own right now in a way, and he's been showcasing himself, like doing little showcases. It feels like, I guess, under the Lionheart character. Does Chris Jericho need a faction, or is he enough on his own right now?
I've never been okay. Well, in AEW anyway, I haven't seen his last faction. Kind of sucked. And like, that's the thing I fear the most. And he's like, I got something planned for you, Hook. The first thing I thought was like, no, don't. But then at the same time, he's definitely, over his years in the industry, helped develop a lot of talents. Does he need a faction? I don't think so. But like, could he do wonders with talent? I mean, okay, has he done wonders with talent in the past? Yeah, I mean, his factions have in the past been successful, just not the Jericho Appreciation Society. I mean, with a name like that, did you really think it was going to go anywhere?
Right. Adam, what do you
Look,
think?
the man is pushing lower to mid 50s right now. He's 53 years old. I don't think he's got much left, especially for everything he puts his body through with the flipping off the ropes, the diving to the outside, all the moves that he does. The hurricanranas off the top rope, especially at 53 years old. I mean, we talk about Sting taking risks, jumping through people through tables, but Chris Jericho is still getting on that top rope with people sitting on and hurricaning them off at 53 years old. So I don't think he needs a faction. I think what we're seeing right now with the Lionheart character, people forget Lionheart character was the very first kind of iteration of what we saw Chris Jericho when he started in the industry. So I think what we're seeing now is a wind down of his career. And I hate to say it because I think a lot of people, some people want to keep seeing Jericho wrestle. Some are like, I think he's good. He's won plenty of world titles everywhere. I mean, he's the Ocho. I mean, he's won 8 world titles in 8 different promotions, and he's got a great list of accomplishments, So I think what we're seeing now is kind of the Lionheart character kind of bring it back to his beginning days to kind of end it out. So I don't think he needs a faction. I like the fact that he's teaming with Hook right now, doing things with Hook, because it kind of brings it back to his days working with Taz. And I keep saying that, but again, I'm an ECW guy, grew up in that era. And so I think what we're seeing now is kind of Chris Jericho being kind of a mentor and kind of becoming that person saying, you know what, I'm at that end. Like, don't know how much more I can do. Not only do I got this, I got Fozzy, I've got the Cruise, I've got, my family at home that I want to see quite a bit. So I think he's winding it down. And I mentioned it, I think last week or the week before about Chris Jericho's career, that I think it's about time he almost hangs it up. I mean, he's got a lot on his plate. And when I mentioned that if one thing has to go on his plate, it has to be pro wrestling. As much as he accomplished in the sport, it's something he has to give up as far as health to his body. Because I guarantee you, when he's performing on stage with Fozzy, I guarantee you he has sores and aches from everything he does in the ring. And I guarantee you he doesn't want to feel that anymore. He wants to be on stage feeling like a rock star. So I think what we're seeing now is kind of the wind down career of Chris Jericho.
That's understandable.
I think if anything, I can see him, and I'm wondering because again, Siren, you said, "Oh, I've got a surprise for you next week." He's like, "I have a proposition."
That's
right.
Yeah.
Oh, which is different, which means I have a feeling, because we're talking, that if we are going to see a transition, because I still want to see Chris Jericho, and I'm fine with him being in a managerial role, and I don't mind him being on the mic and being on commentary. I like that. Could this proposition be almost like a managerial role with Hook? Could it be possible? Like, again, with a proposition, right? It's like an offer, like, hey, how about this, right? So what could it be?
I mean, I totally agree. I can see it as a managerial role. Like I said, he's probably feeling the aches and pains when he's doing shows and when he's, on the cruise trying to move around. I guarantee you those bodies of those wrestlers, they hurt every day. Trust me, I did amateur wrestling. My body hurt every single day from doing amateur wrestling. I wasn't even a pro wrestler, but my body ached. So, especially when you do it year round, like I did, because even in the winter when I did high school wrestling in the off season, I did other wrestling. I did like the 2 other styles that we had with freestyle and Greco, and I did those in the off season. So I never stopped. So I kept wrestling almost year round. On top of that, playing football in the fall for 3 straight years in high school. So it's like for that, my body just ached every day, even though I was a teenager. But I was putting my body through so much. Yeah. But I do think that Chris Jericho could be, like I said, winding down to that managerial role. I'd love to see him walking down the ring with his bat, kind of like a Jimmy Hart with his megaphone or Jim Cornette with his tennis racket. It's kind of one of those kind of roles. And again, the man can speak. Again, Hook hasn't been very good yet with promos. So I
He's
think with a
working on it.
speaker, he's working on it, but with a good managerial voice like a Chris Jericho, I think that would be really good elevation for Hook.
Yeah, that's the old formula. Right?
Yeah,
If the guy can't really speak, pair him up with a manager who's got the personality like a Bobby Heenan or Jimmy Hart, right? So
we were literally just talking about how this was a lost art, you guys, like a couple weeks ago. How the manager was like a lost thing, and we should bring him back so they can get the crowd riled and do this stuff. I'm down. I'm there for it. Like,
I'm a huge proponent of managers. We saw it in the 80s. The guys were over because they had a Bobby Heenan, because they had a Johnny V or a Captain Lou Albano, right? Or even a Mr. Fuji. Like,
and it
right?
created
So, right?
storylines
It just
too,
brings,
like because wrestlers
brings
would
something to a
fight
level of
because of their manager.
character, right? So, no, which is great. So I guess we'll see what the proposition is. But I wanted to bring up, for me, it was kind of like a meh, and I kind of mentioned it to you guys. I want to get your opinion on this. It's the I feel this is like a regurgitated storyline in a way. We have, the way the treatment of Wardlow. Again, we have it with Adam Cole again. To me, which feels like what MJF was doing with Wardlow, that got him over to be a face, disappointed, not treated well, treated as like the henchman, but I don't know. I just feel like we've seen this. I don't know. Am I wrong? Well, how do you guys feel about this? Do you kind of feel it's the same old, and why are they doing it? Because it's cutting down Wardlow's character. I don't know. What you guys maybe your thoughts on this?
I hope that he snaps. I hope that he even points out that, do you really think I'm stupid enough to do this to myself again? Because we've been chit-chatting about this one on here for a little bit too. I mean, I think it's gosh darn silliness. And he didn't even get over as a face for that long. He was so bad as a face. His promos were awful as a face. It was so bad. And people wanted to like him. That's the worst part, because you're right. He was wronged so often. And he did go through so much bull crap. But at the end of the day, when he was sitting there with his hair all, brushed properly, and he was like in his little button-up shirt that he could barely fit into, and was like, yes, ma'am, and please and thank yous, it just didn't work. I love seeing that messy hair, that checking out his own abs in the camera. I love that. Be an ego, be a douchebag. I dig it. It was great.
Adam.
Yeah, no, I feel like, and I'm going to agree with Jesse in the comments, they've dropped the ball on him. I don't think, it's huge how much they dropped the ball on Wardlow. And I think there's a lot of contributing factors to that. I think, everything that happened with MJF and CM Punk, especially MJF kind of playing the character of not re-signing and dropping that pipe bomb on Dynamite, kind of derailed. Then you had everything going on with Wardlow winning the TNT title 3 times and then bouncing back and forth between Hobbs and Joe. So I think there's a big mess there. Honestly, it wouldn't surprise me if Wardlow was kind of playing out his contract right now. I mean, we talk about it. We talk about how we would never believe it, but I mean, look at it now. I mean, Shawn Spears is over in WWE and NXT. He was with AEW. He kind of played out his contract. Jade played her contract out during AEW. Cody Rhodes never re-signed a contract, debuted in one of the biggest debut returns in pro wrestling history, in my opinion. So I wouldn't surprise if Wardlow's in contact with someone like that over in WWE, or maybe a TNA. Maybe it's just I'm not happy at AEW anymore, and that happens. Some people get upset where they work. I mean, do I enjoy my job every day? There's some ups and downs, but I look to see if there's somewhere else that I can fit if I'm unhappy. And I think that's what a lot of people forget, is that if someone's happy, yeah, they have a contract, but let them play that contract out. And if they're not happy, just say, look, I'm not happy. We saw with Andrade. Went back to WWE, so because he wasn't happy. And that comes back to it is if you don't have anything for me, I'll go somewhere else. you know. And I feel like that's what they're doing right now. I think Wardlow would work better, especially in a TNA, because they don't have a lot of big guys in TNA anymore. They don't have big monsters anymore. I can probably think of a few. Moose. I mean, Moose is one. Jake something kind of plays a part in there. Jake something's kind of a big, bulky guy. Yeah, he's a big guy. But they don't have a lot of those monster men in TNA. No. I think he would fit so well in TNA on that roster. So I think him going to TNA would be awesome because they can get more stuff for him to do and not this kind of joining another faction. So I do think what they're doing with Wardlow is unfortunate. And hopefully if this is the end game where he's just playing out his contract, then all power to him.
Oh yeah, I mean, we've seen talent go to other companies and be treated phenomenally. My biggest fear about it, when I first got into AEW, was like watching my favorite people go to other places and then just get buried, you know. And it was like, oh no. But like, even I don't know if anybody follows Fuego del Sol, but like, I mean, man's posting pictures draped in gold, like, you know, he's doing well, and I feel like they've been in WWE's been doing well with Cody, obviously. I mean, Jade had a solid premiere. What's Lexus? Brian Pillman Jr.
King. Yeah,
he's doing very well, like in my opinion, in NXT. Like, I don't know. I think it's great. I think they're doing really well. And that was my biggest fear, was that they would just become nothings over there. And that doesn't seem to be the case. So fear assuaged.
Yeah, I mean, I know with anywhere, you can't keep everyone 100% happy because everyone, again, you're dealing with a lot of egos here, right? And a lot of people who feel entitled and they've had that experience and they've worked up to a certain point. So I get it. And they're entitled to feel like, hey, you know what? That storyline sucks. It's not helping me. I need to be doing something else. So I get it, you know, and you know, there's guys who probably like get me out of WWE. I mean, I just read a bunch of stuff from Ronda Rousey, and she did not have anything kind to say about the locker room and the way things were run over there, right? Again, you take everything with a grain of salt, right? So
there's always three sides of the story.
But again, right. So again, there's guys that are probably guys and girls who love AEW, love it, and then there's guys who are like, you know what? It's time for me to go elsewhere. And that's fine. You're right. This is this kind of business. You're going to have this kind of movement. You can't keep everyone happy. And when you bring in and when you come up with a stacked roster, you know, someone's going to get the short end, right? You know, and it's your point. I know totally. It sucks. AEW is pushing everyone. I'm sorry, I didn't get to fully read that comment there. It sucks. It's pushing everyone who's been there. Yeah. Yeah,
a lot of their older talent doesn't get utilized as much, but some of their homegrown has been utilized fairly well. Yeah. But you also have to account for like injuries and timeout and stuff like that. But yeah, I do agree that a couple of their homegrowns haven't been, you know, spit shined as well as some of the others. But for the most part, I do think that they support their homegrown talent decently. But they have a lot of people. Like, there's so many people.
Totally. I just I wanted to get your guys' opinion on this tag match. I'm sure you can have some comments of the Mariah May and Toni Storm versus Thunder Rosa and Deonna Purrazzo. How'd you guys like this one? Did you find it entertaining? Is it pushing the storyline still? How do you guys feel about this one?
I like how they said it was done, but I don't think it was. Like, hold on. Wait, we're talking about the tag match, right?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, because Thunder Rosa came back, and I've been really been super iffy about her promos lately. But I feel like what's going to come from this match and her actually taking the win, I really hope that it's going to be her making a push back for top of the ladies locker room, because she hasn't really made any forward momentum for me story wise, or since she's gotten back. And I really like her and Deonna put together. Actually, I think they're very interesting, and I haven't really much cared for Thunder Rosa's character until they put her with Deonna for the tiny brief time that she's been with her. I'm like, oh hey, look, cool. So I don't know, but the match itself was really good. I thought it didn't go the way I thought it was gonna go. I thought it was gonna be Mariah getting pinned, but
yeah, so did I. Adam, how did you feel about this match?
Yeah,
I find it
that shocked me as well. That it was Rosa pinning Tony. Like that just shocked me. I did not see that coming. But I agree with Siren. I honestly think this was the right point to make. This kind of builds because there's so much story involved with all women involved in that women's title. And for someone like Rosa, who never lost the title to begin with, you know, they had the interim crap that I don't even want to talk about anymore. We already expressed our feelings here on AEZ about interim champions. But the fact that she had to relinquish the title that she never really lost and watch all these other women fight over that title that she never really lost, kind of putting her back into that story was the right call. Because now you've got an intertwining story as well with everybody else involved in that. And this goes back to why I love that they had Mercedes involved with the TBS title story and not the World Women's title. Because now you can go back to storytelling because now we're going to be pumped when Jamie Hayter comes back because there's stories amongst that. Then we're going to be excited when Britt Baker comes back because there's stories within that. So I think this is a smart move was teaming Rosa with Deanna, and I don't think Deanna one-off against Tony was a one-off match. I think we're going to see it again either at Dynasty or we'll see it at another pay-per-view. But this just builds up to a big women's world title match between these women who can actually go in the ring. You know, someone like a Jamie Hayter who also was injured when she lost the title to Toni Storm. You know, there's story in there, and Britt Baker has history with Jamie Hayter. Jamie Hayter has history with Saraya. Saraya has history with Toni Storm. So it's really interesting to see all this like come full circle, you know, and kind of see where it goes from here. So I'm kind of excited. I did enjoy that tag match. It told a story, and I think that's what we're all about.
Yep.
Oh, we swapped. There we go. I see what happened.
Yeah, there you go. Hey, Connor, welcome to the show. We're close to the end of the show. Good to see you drop in. You know, to your point, though, I think having that tag match was a good idea to have it in Toronto as well. And I know, like, Toronto eats up characters like Toni Storm. They love a heel character like that. They absolutely adore it. And you know, you've got a big Italian population in Toronto as well. So, you know, I think it goes really well. I think someone like Deanna would get well received here, and she was. I mean, I saw her in TNA when she was here in Toronto, and their last show at the end of the last year, at the last I guess unbranded before they changed to TNA. So, but no, I thought it was an entertaining match. Again, like you guys, I was surprised with the ending. But I mean, you'd be seeing it. It's a way to get a champion pinned in a tag match where they don't lose. It doesn't go against their singles record, and it doesn't make them, you know, it doesn't really tarnish the individual belt. So I get why they do that, because it kind of even shows, again, the whole point is to create that interest. Like, oh my God, could she actually win? Could she actually do that? Could we see this happen? Right. So that's one of the biggest things in wrestling to do, is to put that doubt, right? Because that, if you start questioning, then you need to tune in. So as long as we're questioning and we don't know exactly who the outcome is going to be, we're going to tune in, right? So, I just wanted to, I guess, I know we're coming close to the end of the hour here, but I just want to get to see what you guys thought of, again, putting the a women's match as the main event, which they did for Rampage, as they continued Rampage, and they kept the broadcast going. So we got the full Dynamite plus the full Rampage, which I thought was a brilliant idea, and it almost felt we got a 3-hour Raw show, the whole shebang. I thought it was done really well. But the street fight that we had, which was, again, what was it? Willow. It was Willow Nightingale and
Chris
Statler, right? Against Julia Hart and Sky Blue. Which is crazy, because now Willow has the most street matches of anybody in AEW. I think that's also for the men and the women. I think she has the most.
That's actually kind of awesome.
Yeah. So Simon, I'll pass it over to you. What did you think about this as the main event on Rampage to finish the show?
Gosh, there was some spots in there that looked really rough. That on that announce desk, man, like watching Willow and Sky both like bounce on the firmness that was the announce desk. I was like, my body hurts for you. Like, and Sky's face immediately after, like, if they ever do a wrestling documentary for Sky Blue, that shot, the camera shot of like when she put Willow down and her face afterwards, that was so epic and such a real look of not only pain, but it looked like victory. It was so solid. She did it so well. And I'm sure it was mostly just covering up the fact that she just landed really hard on her ass. But like, it looked awesome. And I really loved it. I thought the match was absolutely phenomenal. I don't know about Statlander, like just like convincingly to me, like Statlander tapping out to Julia. I get it, but like I'm still stuck on that whole like strongest alien in the Andromeda Galaxy, even though they're not going with that anymore. I have that like she's this massive, like super strong, ridiculously tough woman who like took down the undefeatable Jade, and then like this tiny little like Riho sized lady makes her tap out. And not that Julia isn't a badass. It's just like I would have even thought that a roll up would have been more believable.
I'll just say it was great, but I'll ask, what is one thing that would have made this match even better? Women tag titles on the line. I'm still pushing. I think I've said this probably a dozen times on these podcasts. We need those women's titles. I think we're inching closer, especially if we have matches like this. Why wouldn't you, right? I think we're starting to see some teams starting to form, but that's my other thought. And I'm still going. I still think there's going to be a women's tournament, and it's going to be at All In London. That we'll finally get our first women's tag champions. That's just my take. That's what I think. But Connor, I know you just joined on as we're kind of approaching the end of the show. Just want to get your take. What did you think of that? The women's street fight there too to end Dynamite. To end Rampage.
For me, it was pretty good. I didn't really care for Willow's spots. It was like every time she's in I know she's been in the most street fights, but every time she's in a street fight, she ends up injuring someone. I remember the one that she did with Anna Jay, and she completely missed the table. And this one is kind of something with Sky Blue. I don't know. Her in street fights just don't. At least every time I've seen her on TV doing one, she doesn't. She ends up really hurting someone, which that's part of a street fight. I thought it was pretty good.
How do you feel about? Do you think are we seeing the formings of tag teams? Do you think this is where we're going? Are they trying to feel it out so it makes sense of whoever wins? It's like, okay, we can see it. These guys are actually a team.
Yeah, it feels like, well, I don't know. After tomorrow night, we might be seeing differently, but Willow and Statlander is sort of a tag team. It may not be after tomorrow night, but we'll see. But there's a few tag teams that they used to have. They had KJ. They had, they have Mercedes and Diamante. They have Britt Baker and Jamie Hayter when they're available. Who else am I forgetting? Tony Storm and Thunder Rosa, if they ever want to rehash that out. Yeah, they got pretty good.
Your favorite female wrestler?
Marina!
Yes.
No, she needs to stay out of it.
She doesn't get a tag partner.
She's in the tournament. If she's in it, and the whole thing, just don't even do the women's trio. Like, just don't even do it. It's not worth the embarrassment, especially at All In. You don't want. Hopefully, she never competes at All In.
You could put her with Trisha Bora. They could be a team.
At that point, like, just have the match. Just put it on BTE or something. Just so it doesn't get an embarrassment. You don't want to embarrass the roster at All In. But hey, there's catering. Kevin Von Erich was talking about catering. It's really good food there.
Connor, you can't make her do it on BTE. That's not fair. The Dark Order's having a hard enough time maintaining views on BTE. Don't subject them to Marina Shafir.
And they can put on Sammy Guevara's vlogs. He does some stuff.
That's true. I haven't seen
that. was gonna say who was it? Who was it? Oh, Deanna and Ty Valkyrie. I know they're both heels and faces, but they actually teamed together a few times in TNA.
I'd watch
More
that.
heels. But yeah, I could definitely see women's tag, which Tony Khan said back in 2019 that was the plan. Of course, we're in
Which makes sense.
2014, but it takes a little bit to form a. It took them a little bit to form a really good women's division. I feel like they've got that now. They've really signed some actually good women from like other people we know of. We just talked about. Yeah.
Let's see. Well, Adam, how did you feel about this match, and how do you feel about the women's division, and your thoughts on even Willow and Statlander staying together as a team?
Yeah, no, this was an interesting street fight. It was not as brutal as the previous ones. Obviously, the TJ against Bunny and who was it? It was it was yes, thank you, Penelope. It wasn't as brutal as that. It wasn't as brutal as Willow and Ruby's match they had, and so I don't know how I feel about it. There were some really cool spots. The tacks in general were really cool. The fact that she power bombed Chris on top of the tacks, and you could just see them sticking out of Chris was just really cool. And then putting them in her mouth and super kicking her. That was an awesome spot as well, because I've seen it so many times with other wrestlers, and my very own Danhausen has done it with his teeth. Puts the teeth in his opponent's mouth and kicks them in the face with it. But yes, as soon as they did the table spot with Willow and Sky, both table spots, both on the announce table and then the two tables set up, I was worried because, like Connor said, Willow has been known in these street fights to, I will say, accidentally injure someone just because of spots. They're pushing the limit with spots. But I think that table spot on the announce table was really cool. But overall, I think it was a decent match. Again, the spot with Chris tapping out, I think that was kind of the signal that the Chris Statlander heel turn is coming. And it may come tomorrow night in that Fatal 4-Way. On top of that, I think a change of character for Chris Statlander would be great. I know it's hard because she's got the sign language thing, so she would have to stop doing that with a heel character. But if it comes to either one of them, it might be Willow. I mean, I would be shocked if Willow turns heel. We kind of saw it a little bit there with Willow with the chair behind Mercedes in that spot, and then she just dropped it, kind of playing. It's like, dude, they're teasing both the heel turns right now, but you never know which one they're going to go. So it would be shocking if, and this is my prediction for it, I think Willow wins that 4-way tomorrow. I also see her going on to win the TBS title at Dynasty against Julia Hart. As much as I love seeing Julia Hart holding that title, I think it's time to move it on to someone. Julia Hart, as much as I like her, she's still got a little bit of work to do, but she's been doing well. But to see Willow win it and kind of rehash her thing with Mercedes from New Japan, because that women's title was basically designed for Mercedes. So now you're just over in AEW. Now you have Willow do the same thing, win the TBS title, and that continues the story with Mercedes. And then maybe you do have Willow do the heel turn and be the heel TBS champion and keep Mercedes face, because everybody's going to cheer the CEO, and people will be heartbroken if Willow turns. But how about this for it? What if Chris and Willow both turn? Now you got another heel women's. Yes. Maybe you have a heel women's tag team, and these tag team titles that you bring up, Matt, those that could be a heel tag team, and they can go up against a face tag team like a Britt Baker and a Jamie Hayter, because those two are going to get cheered, especially if Britt comes back as a face with Jamie. So I think you could go either way with it, but I do want to give a shout out to, since we're talking women's division, 2 matches on Super Card of Honor. Athena and Shida for the women's title, Ring of Honor, and then the inaugural women's television title, Billy Starks and Queen Aminata. let me tell you, Queen Amanada's match against Mariah May was really, really good. I had no idea who Queen Amanada was until I saw that match. And I was very impressed. I was like, I like this girl. I know this was a match to spotlight Maria, but let's talk about Amanada because she's got some talent. And so seeing that, I think both Ring of Honor's kind of building that up, and now AEW, like Connor said, has really built up their women division.
I'm going to touch back on you thinking that it's time, like well enough time for Julia to pass on the TBS title. I agree with that. And it's not because I don't think that she's a great champion and that she's had a solid run. But she herself has admitted that she is still growing and learning and constantly changing. And I mean, now it's time maybe to give that opportunity, the belt to somebody else and just continue to grow and learn and maybe go at it again or go for the women's title next. Like, because she has accomplished quite a bit with the belt and she's grown so much in the last little bit. I don't think for the next little step in her career that she necessarily needs the TBS belt. So yeah, I mean, I definitely could see that. And then, we went into something else after that, but I totally forgot what my point was on that. So never mind.
So, I agree. I think it's Ida's time. I'll agree with Adam. I felt like this was a case where the belt made Julia Hart, and it's time to put it on someone who can make the title, if that makes any sense, right? It's, like a WWE was always great for that. Let's put the belts on like Liv Morgan, right? WWE was always big for putting the belt on the underdog. Instead of feeling like that's the champion can beat anyone, you almost feel like anyone can beat the champion, right? So I kind of feel like with Julia Hart a little bit, maybe the next run as she gets bigger and better, and the character develops more, and if they put the belt back on her, the second reign will be even better. I know this definitely helped her, but yeah, I kind of agree. It's time. Does it go to Willow right off the bat? I don't know if you guys noticed with Mercedes, kind of she has this kind of attitude though that's a bit heelish, kind of like, look at me, I'm the CEO, and very a little bit egotistical, which it's not very face-like, right?
And plus the comments that she's made outside of wrestling.
Yeah.
I mean,
So
it's kind of hard to push that as a face.
Right? It's kind of that like, are you really a face? Because again, faces don't have this kind of attitude, right? So I don't know. I could see her. I can see them turning her heel after this kind of run. It's the excitement of her coming back. So it's always hard to start with someone as a heel when the excitement is massive. And so because they want that crowd reaction as the person coming in. Kind of like a Will Ospreay. How can you make Will Ospreay come in here and he's part of the Don Callis family, but he's coming as a face because everyone is excited and just can't wait to see the guy, right? So I don't know if they will turn Will Ospreay, just kind of like, but I think that they're going to go, what I think, and from the indicators there, I think Mercedes will turn heel. I don't know what you guys think of that, or if you kind of saw some elements of that.
I definitely see the cockiness. She, for sure. Like, I want to say that, for me, pushing her as a face, just from like what I've seen of her, like, I'm not super behind her as a face. But like that could change. I mean, I'm not solidly set in my opinion on her, but like I will tell you right now, the moment that she went CEO, I was like, I hate you. You're not DMD. Don't do that. I don't like you. And it was just like a natural instinct for me. So I don't know if they're gonna try and push her as a face or a heel. I'm not too sure yet, but like I would probably be more behind the idea of a heel Mercedes than a face myself.
So you can already hear the chants when those two fight. CEO, DMD,
yeah.
All right, so it's already set up for that. Connor, what do you think? What do you think? Where are they going with Mercedes' character?
It's hard to tell. I mean, she hasn't really. They're not going to have her wrestle anytime soon. It doesn't look like she's going to be on commentary tomorrow night. She's not really wrestling at all. I mean, she didn't serve to the TBS title picture, that's for sure. The main title picture is with Tony, Deanna, Thunder Rosa, Mariah May, all them. TBS, you got Mercedes, Willow, uh, Julia, and all them. I don't know. You got to think she'll be doing something at Dynasty. I think we could be getting 3 women's matches at Dynasty if she's not included in the TBS title match. If she is, then it'll probably be just the women's title and the TBS title. But yeah, I agree. I think the first women's pay-per-view main event will probably be Mercedes versus Britt Baker for the championship, probably, because I feel like that could be a really good story. And considering her comments before coming to AEW, I can already see Britt Baker using that interview that she did about going back to WWE. I could see Britt Baker using that against her. Because if anyone knows, if you watched AEW, what was it called?
All Access.
All Access. And just the way she portrays herself on TV, that she's, the first woman signing in AEW history. She feels like a responsible person to, I guess, carry the women's division, which she's had in the past. So I could definitely see a really good, this would be a perfect time for the outsiders versus the homegrown, like they were going to do last year, the blood and guts, the outsiders versus the homegrown. That'd been perfect. But I'm really excited to see what she's going to do. I'm not the biggest Mercedes, fan, but hopefully her coming to AEW not just elevates herself, but everyone in the women's division, because I feel like that's what's best, like not just for her, but the entire women's division as a whole, to get taken more seriously, more TV time, more stories, more titles, like the women's tag titles.
More main events.
Main events, yeah. Yeah, I think Baker and Mercedes will probably be your first pay-per-view women's main event.
Right. Adam, I'll give you the last word on this before we wrap up the show.
Mercedes Moné, Sasha Banks works better as a heel. That's what I'm going to say. I think her as a heel is what's best for business. I know she's getting this whole – she was the face cheer in Boston because she's from there. So obviously that's what they wanted to do. But I can kind of see them turn a 180 on a dime and basically turn her heel. And I'm behind Connor. I would love to see a team up of both Toni Storm, Saraya, Mercedes Moné, Ruby Soho, although I don't know how you do that because Ruby has kind of broken away from Saraya, but all those, former WE women's wrestlers against the homegrown, so I guess you could kind of see if that can build up to it and you have your first ever women's blood and guts. I mean, I think we'll get to that if that's something. I mean, because you have to remember Sasha or Mercedes was involved in the first ever women's Hell in a Cell in WWE. That was the first ever one, and she was the first one to do it. So I think when she talks about a global revolution in her promo, if that's what they want to do, then they need to step it up from these street fights and basically make it blood and guts for the all females. Maybe they don't take the high risk, like throwing each other off the top of the cage and through a table, but they can do some crazy spots, inside that cage and even on the outside with the cage. They don't have to climb all the way up, kind of like battle on the side by the announce table. Someone throws someone off that side and they go through the announce table. So there's so many spots you can do. But yeah, with Mercedes, I'm very interested where they go with it. Just because she's the brand new signee that just came over. We've had the Will Ospreay, the Okada kind of coming through, but now, she's the newest big signee that we have. And you kind of want to wonder where they're going to go with her story. And like Connor said, is she going to have a match at Dynasty? I can kind of see her maybe, like he said, we have 3 women's matches at Dynasty where it's the TBS title. And then, Deanna gets her rematch against Toni Storm for the women's. And then maybe you have Mercedes against Chris Statlander, because maybe Chris steps up and says, I don't like the way you talk to Willow or something like that. Let's fight at Dynasty. So you still have Willow in that TBS title match and then Chris versus Mercedes, and then maybe after that, she kind of, confronts Willow after she wins the TBS title, and you kind of get that story going. So, I mean, there's so many ways you can just go with her character.
No, I agree. And you know what? I think we're going to tomorrow night. We'll start seeing how these storylines start developing as we approach Dynasty and some of the other big pay-per-views they have going. So, but was a great conversation, a great podcast again, all great points. And we'll wrap it up for another week of AEZ, All Elite Zone Canada. Thanks very much, guys. Siren, Connor, Adam, it's great to see you again. Great discussion. And we'll do it all again next week. And please tell all your family and friends to like and subscribe and keep checking out the show. Really appreciate it. Thanks for everyone who dropped comments in the comment section during the show. Really appreciate it. And this wraps it up for another week. And we'll see you all next week. Take care, guys.